Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a Wednesday and what might be a heated edition of Morning Cuppa Hockey presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We got a New York Ranger heavy show today. Not going to pretend, not going to hide it. It's a big talking point, and that's probably what we're going to get started with. We got Mike Rupp joining the show at 9:10. I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, but go to Rupper's Twitter. He put out about a 3.5-minute video talking about the New York Rangers as well. So we'll get to the bottom of that with him. And we might have Pat Maroon join at the end. Still unsure about that. So we'll keep you posted if Pat is joining or not. But without anything else or without any further ado, Colby, what are your thoughts this morning?
You know what, Johnny? I think
I see the chat going off already, by the way.
Here's what I think. I think we're going to clarify some of these rumors today.
Yeah.
We're going to clarify them. And I think that's important because I do think there has been some, I don't want to call it false reporting, or I just think it's a little bit of irresponsible reports that are being pushed out there, whether it's Steve Dangle, whether it's our good friend Emily. I don't think Emily is an irresponsible reporter by any means, but I just think there are certain situations where you and I, as guys who have friends in these locker rooms, we both played this game. It's no secret. And you look at some of the guests that we've had on this show, guys you played with that you're still really close with, guys I've played with that I'm still really close with, that, we have the ability to ask players directly, right? In and throughout the league. And I think there's kind of a fraternity amongst those groups. So I just think it's important that we just clarify some of the reports.
And that also wasn't the case with this. It was brought up on our show yesterday that there was a report. So I forgot which listener, which chat member put it in our chat saying, can you talk about the Steve Dangle report about the players only meeting discussing Chris Drury and not Peter Laviolette? And it's not like Colby and I went digging for it, right, Colby? Like, we saw this and we obviously didn't want to give our opinion on it right away because we didn't see it prior and we didn't know much about it. But do you want to take it from here? Because it's not like we went digging. It kind of came to us.
Yeah, I got a text message, from a current NHL player, and that's the most I'm going to say. I'm not going to say if he's a New York Ranger or not. But I literally received a text message and it said, tell Johnny that the report is complete nonsense and fabricated. Listen, saying the New York Rangers had a closed door meeting, which I believe is the terminology that Emily used, right?
Yeah. And she did not say players only.
She didn't say players only. She said a closed door meeting. Well,
which could mean management, coaching staff.
Let's talk about that. Most meetings that happen before the media walks in are closed door meetings, right? When a coach talks to his team before and after a game, before the circus arrives, they're closed door meetings. And the New York Rangers have had plenty of quote unquote closed door meetings throughout this horrifying skid that they've been on. But the report that there was a Drury bashing session amongst the players in a room, it just couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a number of players.
Yeah, it wasn't just one player that reached out, and that's what we're going with. I spoke to some players as well and people around the team, and nobody seems to, or no, everyone has said this didn't happen. So that's, and listen, Colby and I aren't trying to, start anything. People came to us and told us, players came to us and told us, and that's why we're putting it out there. It's not like we're looking for sources or we're looking for a story.
Oh, listen.
We feel the need to be responsible and voice what the players have told us.
And players get fed up when they see these types of things, right? And there's clearly dysfunction in their locker room, and there's clearly probably been, get-togethers, maybe at the rink, not at the rink. Well, they don't have a captain now, but players have probably stood up on the bus. There's probably been things that have been said on the ice at the team's, stretch at the end of practice. Players only saying we need to be accountable, all these types of things, like that's obviously, that's obviously things that happen every day. There's meetings every day. Like an NHL team operates like a business. You have a power play meeting before a game. You have a penalty kill meeting.
There are a million meetings.
There's literally a million meetings that
Probably
happen.
more meetings than a 9-to-5 corporate job.
So we're not going to sit here and watch the media spin this in a false manner. They just, it's irresponsible, and a guy like Steve, who I've never met, I know very little about, has a big following. I just think, again, like you're
he must have heard it from somewhere. It's not like he's just putting that out there. And listen, people, I'll be upfront. I heard something like 3 weeks ago. I put out a little eyeball emoji and a pen, and nothing came from it. Sometimes you hear something and it doesn't come true. It doesn't make you an irresponsible or force reporter, but it sometimes make your sources wrong in a certain situation. That's all it really is. I don't think Steve is like putting something together in his own brain, right? He must have heard it from somewhere.
I'm just looking at the chat, trying to catch up.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there's not issues here. It doesn't mean players are not, struggling in the environment that they're in. It doesn't mean that Chris Drury hasn't done a dog shit job of keeping this team together. But I'm just saying there was no, I'm very confident in the fact that there was no players only closed door meeting where they went on this, Chris Drury bashing session. It doesn't mean guys aren't at the bar getting dinner and talking about what a shit show or the Wild West, or, oh my God, they just ran our captain out. Like, this is uncomfortable. They floating guys' names out. Like, it doesn't mean these things haven't been mismanaged. It doesn't mean players aren't sitting there going, what the hell's going on? But it's not true. They didn't have this Chris Drury bashing session that's being painted in the media. It didn't happen. It did not happen. And I saw people tweeting at me, oh, Emily Kaplan just confirmed it. No, she didn't. Go back and listen to what she said. That's not what she said.
Yeah.
To think that this team hasn't had 100 meetings is crazy. But when we have players that, play in and around the New York Rangers, it's telling us this. Like, I believe those guys, right? Those aren't, you're not hearing it secondhand. You're hearing it from the sources. You're hearing it from directly within the locker room, and that's what I'm going with, that's exactly what I'm going with.
And I've also never in a million years, I mean, listen, I've never been on an NHL team, but I've never in a million years heard of a players only meeting about a GM. Players don't have any control over the GM.
No,
ever.
No. Players can run a coach out of town, but players, I mean, like, you're not usually a group of players would go to the GM in their year-end meetings and they would all voice displeasure and then something would happen. What are the players going to go to the owner in New York?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's not happening. No. I'm sorry. This isn't the NBA. This isn't the NFL. The players don't make $57 million a year guaranteed. Like, it's just not happening in the sport. So there's just been a lot of false reporting. And then on top of it, we're seeing all these rumors about Kako, and look, scratching him was kind of embarrassing. Like, I'm going to put,
I wasn't blaming Laviolette at all until that decision.
Yeah, like, that was horrible. But I'm seeing reports that, like, the Chicago Blackhawks are in the hunt for Kako. Like, it's just not true. Like, you look at what the Blackhawks are doing. I spent a lot of time in their front office the last couple of years. He doesn't even remotely fit the mold of what they've been and what they're looking for. Not even remotely. I would bet you one of my children that's a bad report. Okay. And the whole Minnesota, I see it in the chat, right? Yeah. The Minnesota Wild report, okay, that Emily reported. I don't know, Johnny. To me, that I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
I don't think they're interested either. But again, different sources, different people. But from what I've heard, I don't think Minnesota has any interest in Kako.
Any interest whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so again, it's not like people aren't getting this information, but they're getting bad information. It's not happening. He's not going to Minnesota. He's not going to Chicago. The people thinking that the New York Rangers are trading the second overall pick to this team or that team are just not looking at the situation properly.
There's reason to believe it, though. I mean, I would think Kaapo Kakko at this point does not want to play for this coach or this team.
I'm not saying that that's not true. And with what happened the other day, like you picked on low-hanging fruit, which I think is a chicken shit move for Peter Laviolette, and then you gave a chicken shit answer when you said we just wanted to get fresh legs in. That's ridiculous. But I'm just saying, like, people are just piecing things together, and they're like, oh, nobody looks at Kaapo Kakko as the second overall pick anymore. Nobody looks at him like that. He's just a guy who plays in your bottom six now and gives you between 10 and 14 minutes, right? And you know, this year is almost a half a point a game player, so you're getting some depth scoring. Okay, do you need a depth scoring winger on your team? Okay, sure. But what are you giving up for a depth scoring winger? Not much, right? Not much at all.
Maybe just a pick.
A fifth round pick.
Yeah, fifth round
like that.
Fifth round.
He doesn't have the value. He's not the second overall pick. He's not the second overall pick anymore. We got to get rid of that. He's not been that for a long time.
Yeah.
He's a 330 game NHL
he's almost
player.
A veteran. He's like a veteran in the league.
Played
now.
330 games and he's got 131 points. He's a depth winger on your third or fourth line on a good team.
Yeah, but Colby, I got to cut you off because I want to talk about our friends at Fountain Tire. You and your family's safety is important, and they'll treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle. And if you need new tires or maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop into Fountain Tire and they'll sort you out. Stop into Fountain Tire or make an appointment by checking out fountaintire.com. And with that said, we're going to bring in our
Can I
friend.
just finish I just want to wrap my last sentence on that before we give it to Rupper.
Yeah. Sorry, Rupper.
Having said all that, good morning, Rupper. I still thought it was a dog shit move going for low-hanging fruit with Kaapo Kakko. Like he's played pretty well for his role this year. So I know we're dispelling a lot of these reports that are being put out there, having very high sources in a lot of these places, but like I still thought it was a chicken shit move scratching him. Like I thought like, oh, the low-hanging fruit, like that's a coward move in my opinion. So sorry, Rupper.
I'm going to ask Rupper a question here
from you, but I just wanted to finish my thought.
And I have a question for you, Rupper, just to bring you in here. I don't know if you caught my video that I did about 3 weeks ago on the roof of my apartment outside in the dark. Were you trying to one-up me with your good lighting and good sound in the car yesterday?
No, why? What was your post? I didn't see that.
No, I did it after the Rangers lost to St. Louis on home ice. I made like one of the videos you did yesterday, but I was like, it was like really dark and the sound quality wasn't great. And everyone was,
he was
like,
on his roof.
Oh my God, are you okay? Like,
and he was on his roof, Rupper.
Yeah.
Hey,
wasn't a good look. And then you come out, you're looking great.
Sometimes you just need an impromptu video breakdown, man. And you can't worry about all the little things and make sure they're in place. I will say this though. I did park. I just got to NHL Network when I did that. And I pulled in and the first angle I was at, the sun was right in my face and I had all this stuff. So I had to turn the car around, but little adjustments.
But after that game last night, I mean, you voiced your feelings yesterday. I would think most people in this chat and watching this show have seen it. Has anything changed to you or that last night? Is it officially rock bottom here? What's going on in your mind?
I mean, right now it kind of just feels like every game trumps the other game, right? So, I mean, I don't think anything is going to change overnight. You don't get into this situation overnight. So it was kind of just a very bland game, I'd say, for both teams, right? Like I wasn't impressed by Nashville at all in the game. I mean, the Rangers were they were trying to find their way out of this. Like, was it better than what we've seen? Yeah.
Effort-wise, maybe.
Yeah, I thought it was better in some areas. I felt like they didn't shoot themselves in the foot as frequently as they have been in games. But it was, I mean, it was a bit of a grind type game where it just felt like both teams were kind of slapping pucks around, not really getting great looks. And the looks you do get in those types of games, you got to bury. The Rangers had a couple, they couldn't.
Mhm.
And it was just kind of a strange game, but I don't really put too much stock into it, except I think the nature of it is people are going to look at the standings and say this is the worst record or worst team in the National Hockey League in Nashville.
Yeah.
And we lost to them. And I think that just compounds everything that's been going on.
Well,
And it was Chicago 8 days ago.
Yeah, true. Very true.
One goal against Chicago and Nashville combined.
Well, and Nashville had a pretty band-aided together. Band-aided is probably not a real word, but a bandaged.
Great use of it, though. I love it.
Right? Like Nick Blankenberg, who, again, he's still finding his way in this league, right? He was in college 2 seasons ago. He's already been traded. Delgado is kind of in his first year in the National Hockey League. I had never heard of Wilsby and Gravel, right? Like, so you have basically Brady Shea and Luke Shen are your only kind of regulars in that game. And we point a lot of fingers at the Ranger blue line, but
but look at that lineup too last night. You have Ruedel and Jones, and Jones has been playing great and he's been a regular this year, but you have Vakanainen's first game. The Rangers blue line isn't necessarily what it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you're I agree. I did the same thing, Colby. I'm like, I pulled up Nashville's I'm watching the game and I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, they got no Yost, we know this. And I'm like just kind of doing some dive on who they got in the lineup, and then you got that goal. What's the kid's name again?
Willsby.
What
a play! I mean, what a play!
What a first! Yeah, I mean, there's 2 different ways to look at this. I don't know if you'll find a better first NHL goal, especially from a defenseman. But Riley Smith, dude, what are you doing, man?
Oh, it was Smith. I thought it was Hedel, but it's Smith.
No,
You're right.
Smith.
Okay.
Yeah. So like on this one, like. And you know what I think this is a component of? Because Riley Smith we've seen him for a long time. I mean, I know things have not been going great for him here in New York. And quite frankly, I've covered him pretty closely in Pittsburgh last year. And he's had a rough stretch. But I think this is a component of we're trying to change everything on one play. He thinks he's going to block this because he's in the puck lane and he's going to go on a breakaway. And then he's going to get the goal that this team needs so poorly, or so badly, I should say, right now, and in turn doesn't do what you have to do on the play, right? Like he leaves himself vulnerable. Like that was a really nice move, but it wasn't like he backhand toe dragged that thing. Like he literally just stopped and pulled it from his left to his right and just walked around like nothing. Now the shot was incredible also, but that's just
bad details. Like, and I've been saying that about the Rangers, and that's where like, and I want to get to your video because you did talk a lot about the coaching staff, because there really is a lot of blame to go around here. But you watch Riley Smith go out there, like watch he stick. He shrinks himself by pulling his stick in, and then he goes for that big swipe. For a defenseman, that's your dream. Like when a guy like a stick extended player in coverage is so much harder to do that, because then almost no matter what, they're playing through you, even if they play through your hands. But he brings his stick back into his body and he makes himself small in coverage. And like most NHL defensemen are going to be able to do that. Like anywhere in the NHL are going to be able to make that play. To what you said, like it wasn't some Yossi spinorama backhand toe drag, PK Subban, dance moves type of deal. It was just a really, really poor coverage and just taking advantage. But it goes back to their details all over the ice. Their details stink.
Yeah, and their details or lack thereof it's a huge component of why they're struggling. Like they some of the breakdowns that we're seeing every single night. I mean, it's just the details, the little things that should be automatic. And I think those things, you get away from those things when things are so bad, right? Like now you're trying to do too much. And I think what it comes down to, and I hate to use it because I thinking of the New England Patriots makes me want to puke. But when I mention like Bill Belichick, do your job, like that was one of the best lines that I've heard. And that's in hockey. Like you need to be selfish at certain times. And when your team is struggling, it's not. Now, hold on a second. Let me correct that. Like, I didn't love what Kakko kind of threw the boys under the bus and what he said yesterday. The second part of what he said, I think he should have stopped at the first
Don't
part.
Don't compare yourself to other players.
I'm not the last one.
Never do that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it was intentional, but it's going to be perceived, or it's going to be grabbed, or people are going to talk about it and make it kind of that. But but to his,
he's right.
That's a little bit separate. But when I talk about player being selfish, like I think that you have to sit there, and when you're in a defensive zone, you have to tell yourself, what is my job? And I need to execute my job. And if anything else happens negative after that, you adjust, but I'm going to do my job. And I always found that which most teams, I mean, there's still some teams that play, kind of go to that man on man, but when you're playing your zone, like it's simple. When I was a winger, I'm sitting there, I'm like, my job is to not let the opposing forward come up the wall, cut the seam to the middle of the ice. That's my one spot. I'm protecting that. And I'm baiting them to move it to the point man, so I can maybe get a stick on it, go out there and get him in a tough spot, maybe block a shot. I mean, and then the other part of it, it's like if it's on the weak side and I'm the weak, or sorry, I'm not. If I'm the weak side winger, there's going to be some times where I'm going to have to overly collapse if there's blown coverage in front. Those are my three things.
You're holding wrong side winger. You're holding dot line, right? It's kind of your area.
There's markings on the ice that you adhere to, and this is where I go and this is what I do. It's the same thing for a PK. And so again, not to try to simplify everything, but when you just are selfish and just worry about yourself.
Yeah.
And I think what I find here when I watch these guys, or any team in the NHL, I don't think guys are like, oh, I don't care, I'm going to just freelance here and do whatever I want to do. But you try to do too much.
And then you duplicate.
Now I think that Colby blew this coverage and I'm going to go try to do his. Now you don't have conviction where I need to know exactly what Colby's doing. And I need to know this because I've seen it 100 times. And so I know what he's going to do before he does it. We're a step ahead, and all of us are just a step ahead of the opponent. And they just don't have that right now.
There's also something that I want to say, and then a point that I want to follow up with. I did speak to an NHL player that's played against the Rangers in the past week or so. And he said, like, you could tell they're gripping it. Like, you can tell when you're playing against them, everything going on right now. And listen, when you lose 11 out of 14 games, it's pretty tough to not let it affect your mental psyche, right? Like, you're going to think, oh, no, here we go again. You know, that's just only human nature to have that feeling. But in regards to the Kakko situation, there is also something to be said. And listen, I've known to be a bit of a Kakko hater in the past, but I do love the guy. You know, I've talked to him. He's a really good guy. He's always accountable for himself, whatever. He'll speak out to the media. But there's something to be said about every time that the Rangers scratch somebody, he is the guy that comes out of the lineup. And why is that? Is the emotion there? Does he have that B game that Colby always talks about when he's not producing? Will he throw that big hit? Will he block that big shot? Will he bring guys in fight? He doesn't really do that stuff. And there is a reason why he's the fall guy when someone needs to come out of the lineup. I think we're being a little naive if we don't point that out as well, right? It's the third coach to scratch Kakko.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's when I came on, I heard Colby, you talking about, I think you're bang on. And I think right now that's the low hanging fruit. That's the easy out. And that's, again, not, I don't know. It's just,
I don't think he deserves to be scratched. I'm just saying there's clearly something.
I think you see through those things, but I mean, it doesn't matter now. But I've always thought that you talk about Kakko, and I'm not trying to say I actually, here's what's going to happen. They're going to end up trading him at some point, and he's going to pop off, and he's going to be a really good player in this league. And I don't mean to the level of, and that's what I came in and heard you guys talk about. Probably not to the level of a second overall pick that we're used to seeing. Like, I don't think that Kakko's ever going to be north of 80 points. I don't see that. But but what he has learned here inadvertently by not getting opportunities and playing in a depth role, he is the best protector of the puck in the offensive zone. He forechecks, he uses his reach, he goes to some of those areas of the ice. I think that he does that better than when you're talking about zone time and hanging on to pucks. He's awesome. And young players don't have that now. Mm-hmm. They don't have that. And he had to be kind of forced into that. Now, can he start scoring? I mean, he might be one of the most snake bitten guys I've seen, because he gets looks, and he has for years, and he can't score.
But can I ask you, but how, like, is it snake bitten or is it who he is? Because it's 330 games.
Yeah. Yes, right. But I don't know. But I guess here's the point where I'm at. Until Laff got force-fed minutes, we didn't know what he was going to be. I still don't believe. No, I don't. Not that I don't believe it hasn't happened. Kakko been force-fed. No matter what, you're playing in this top 6 role, and you're going to go. And I don't know if I'm not saying that's the right move for the Rangers right now, but he hasn't gotten that. And it took until last year for Laff to get that. So we don't know what he is, even though it has been 330 games. I think we got an idea. But I mean, it's just I don't like the way that he's been kind of managed over his entire career.
I'll throw one name at you.
The same name that we're thinking of.
I was just gonna say the only guy that I can think of, Rupper, that played a ton of games in the league and then just like when he was like 29, he completely changed is like basically Ryan Hartman, because he was like traded around and depth player. Okay, we'll try you on the first line for 3 games. It doesn't work. You're back to the 4th line. We'll put you on this. We're traded to the Flyers or this and that. And then all of a sudden, he kind of finds a home in Minnesota. And we're like, oh, shit. We're like, this guy's a legitimate second-line center in the National Hockey League now and can kill penalties and play on our power play. And so it doesn't happen often, but that is one example of a guy who played – I don't know how many games, like I'd have to go look it up, but I just remember he played a few hundred games before he became the guy now that everybody's like, wow, this guy's a legitimate 1st-round pick. Like this guy works.
I might have a better example, Colby, and not to one up you here, but
good.
I think it's more accurate. I think it's more accurate to Kakko's style too, and that's Valeri Nichushkin. And his first 4 years in Dallas, I just looked it up too. He played, I think, a little over 200 games. Wasn't much of a point producer. Granted, we're not talking about anything that's happened in his career away from the rink, but once he went to Colorado, he became that power forward that I think he was projected to be. He was a 10th overall pick. And, his first year in the NHL, he had 34 points. Second year, he got hurt, only played 8 games. Third year, had 29 and 79. And the 4th year in Dallas, no goals, 10 assists in 57 games. Then he goes to Colorado, and that's where his career just transforms.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't know what you make of him. I think we're still learning, and even with his comments the other day, it's still kind of a learning thing that we are learning about him. I just think that, man, we're sitting here, and after that game, that St. Louis game, in post-game comments, Adam Fox talking about having one and dones, no zone time. I'm like, your best guy for that was scratched tonight, and he probably shouldn't have been. And then just the response to that, and it's fine, you can scratch him. I'm not saying you can't scratch the guy. He's not. But it's the guy that you always do it to. And I just don't know. For me, that's phony accountability. And every player reads through it. So, yes, he's upset about it. But the other players are like, whew, let's put Kakko in front of us. We're all good. As long as he's here, I'm good. I've been that guy.
Like, you don't have to win the race. You just can't finish last if you want, or you'll get eaten.
Right?
You don't got to outrun the bear. You got to outrun your buddy.
Yes, 100%.
I love that you said that. And honestly, Rupper, I'm gonna probably get the clip of that, and I'm gonna show it to my junior team that I coach, because I have these conversations with guys when they're healthy scratches, and the first thing they say is, "Yeah, but I'm better than that guy," or "That guy, we just called him up, and he's gonna play over me," and I'm like, that's not how we're deciding the lineup. Like, we're trying to put a team on the ice. We need guys who have certain roles.
Right.
Like, it's such that's the thing. I loved Kakko's first part because he stuck up for himself. But the minute he dragged other players into it, and I know he didn't use a name, I thought he completely lost the plot on his comments at that point.
So you're bang on, because I want to be. I've said it already, and I've said it in the past. If you fact check me, I like Kakko. I did not like that part of it. But I'm trying to think, like, why would you say that? Like, I understand. I mean, he speaks English. He understands English. Like, we understand this, but like there's sometimes still a little bit lost in translations when when you're talking with Europeans, right? And But for me, it's a mindset that this is the cloud that's over the team right now. And it kind of goes off what you're saying. But I feel like inside that room, even though it's a group that likes each other, you want to play for each other, it's the wild, wild west. I'm trying not get shot in the back right now. Yeah, like that's literally what's happening. So when you get scratched, I think that's his pushback. when things are happening and you're coming to the rink. That's kind of part of the video that I was saying, like, you're coming to the rink here, you're looking over your shoulder because there's so much bullshit that's happening around you that you're like, I got to survive today. Like, I got to make sure, like, I'm going to stick up for myself. And that's a bad spot to be in as a team, because I don't think if it was just a straight, if those things weren't, if that wasn't the environment you're in, I don't know if that's the response. Maybe he stops at that first part, because I've never heard that side of him before they say that. But I think right now, everyone's just trying to keep their head above water.
They're walking around.
If it means pushing this guy down to keep your head up, that's what's happening. And that's a bad spot to be in.
So let me ask you a question off of that too, because I've been trying to think about this in so many different ways. And obviously there's been chatter about, the team is upset with how Drury or how management has treated the players and how they handled the Gaudreau situation and the Trouba situation. And I look at Tampa Bay and the way that Steven Stamkos, we talked about him this summer, about how they treated Steven Stamkos, a guy that was a captain there for over a decade, and they're doing just fine. So is it really just the Rangers being that mentally fragile? Like, it can't really be. Guys come in, guys get moved. This stuff happens all the time. And I have a hard time truly believing that it's really that much of an effect on the room with that situation, those two situations.
Well,
better than that. You've been in way more locker rooms than we have,
Yeah, I mean,
Johnny, you go in the locker room every day. You. What are you talking about?
But not in the closed door.
You sit in the guy's stalls. I mean, you like to pretend.
Yeah, I whisper in my ear all the time.
I think that what it is I don't know.
Maybe
not the same situation, but I feel like
I thought I think that everybody freaking out about what they did with Barclay Goodrow, and everyone's like, oh, that's when this all started. That I would call BS on. But the way they ran their captain out of town and the way they made it a public affair and the way that they turned the fan base against him, to me, that's where Chris Drury made his big mistake. The Goudreau thing, listen, we live in a cutthroat business and a cutthroat world, right? But when you run your captain out of town in my opinion, a classless way, especially for a guy who was a captain, that pisses me off. And we had Chris Kelleher on our show the other day, Rupper, who only played one game in the National Hockey League, but we talked a lot about how Bill Guerin doesn't forget what it's like to be the player. He still makes hard decisions. He still puts people on waivers. He still trades people. He still does all that. But the way that he goes about it, he doesn't take off the lens that I was once this guy. And I've said this before, and I'll use Don Sweeney's name. I'll use Bruce Cassidy's name, two people I dealt with my whole pro career. To me, those guys forgot what it's like to be the player. And that I struggle when people are like that. Bill Guerin lands the plane every time on that. Chris Drury seemingly has forgotten what it's like to be in the player, to be a player. In my opinion.
Or he's hung on to what it was like because of the way kind of things went down in New York with him. You'd think that he would learn not to do that, not to treat players the same way, and he hasn't done that. And I think that's where to me there's a problem there. And you mentioned Billy Guerin, like, loved him. He's one of my favorite teammates of all time. And I don't want to stick with that part of it because then you're going to be like, oh, well, anything you're going to say from now on is going to be partial to him.
No, it's just honest.
I've had good buddies who have played for him since he's been GM, and they don't love everything he has to say. He's made some really tough decisions there. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I think Billy never forgets is he was a player too. And all that is, and as simple as it is, and it wasn't a simple situation in New York, how to handle some of these spots. Just communicate, right? Just go in there and just say, here's where we're at. This is my job and this is where I'm at here. And kind of paint that. I will say, just from a very good source that I feel very confident in saying this, not until the week of the trade for Trouba was there a conversation with Jacob Trouba. Yeah. It was all done via the agent.
Yeah,
that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You sit down and you talk man to man. You look the guy in the eye and you say, I understand your situation. Here's my situation. I got to do my job. This may hurt, but this is what's going to happen. And you talk through it. That didn't happen. And because that's not happening, you're talking about the most loved guys in that locker room. You don't think that that's that's passed on, and we get to see how that is. And I think that the whole, I don't think any chance in hell this team had any interest in trading Chris Kreider. Not any.
Yeah.
This guy's number. This is going to be this. He's going to be the next New York Ranger jersey that's probably hanging up at MSG. Okay, and this guy, especially, I mean, even with those two that we mentioned, this is the locker room favorite. Could very well have been the captain instead of Jacob Trouba at the time. I think that was a very strategic memo that went out. Let's chuck his name in there and let's stir up the emotions of the team. That's bullshit. Yeah. Like, no more of that. You know what I mean? Like, just let's get out of this. Like, there's got to be a better way. You've got to be more creative in connect with players to get more out of players than manipulating players via the media or via some of these situations.
Yeah, I mean, perfectly said. And it's a great point. Like, it's all about communication, no matter what level of hockey you're playing, right? Like, if it's college, if it's junior, NHL, like,
you know what, Johnny, let me just say,
they don't trust them.
And I'm not, listen, you're talking about someone like, I've got more old school views than new school views.
Yeah.
Right. I've adapted in a lot of different ways in hockey and the way the game should be played, but I still believe in squeezing the group, but you got to have the respect of the group. You've got to respect them. In turn, they will respect you. And now we can squeeze it. We can come in here and we can have some fun through some dark times and work our way out of it, which will make us better on the flip side. But I think back to, like, and I hate to, for Ranger fans, probably don't want to hear it. It's not all puppies and rainbows. I don't want puppies and rainbows. Like, I had Lou Lamoriello as a GM. Okay. One of the most cutthroat guys in the industry. This guy called me in. I remember that he just told it how it was. I remember it was me. I had like a rough year, health issues, not playing good hockey. My career was kind of on the, it could have gone either way. He signs me to a 2-way deal a couple years into my career. He brings myself, Dan Lacouture, and I can't remember the third. He brought 3 of us in, signs us all to the exact same contract, brings us in his office, sits us down and says, here's the scenario. This is where we're at. I signed you all 3 to the same contract. Only one of you is going to make the team. So in camp, just know that and compete basically your balls off. Yeah. And as much as I was like, all right, do we just fight in the room right now? Is this how we're settling? It's like, you wonder, like, what I appreciated, like, he laid it right out there. That he doesn't, like, Lou didn't pull any punches, but you know what he also did? He had the respect of the team, and he can do some things and he can say things and he can prod you, and you're not going to be like, this is, I don't know. It could be done. And it has been done. And Lou wasn't a former player in the National Hockey League. He just he showed you respect, but when it came to business, he hit you hard. But you could deal with it because you had the respect of him.
Was this in the time frame where he was not letting guys do direct deposit, so you had to physically get your check from him and make sure he looked you in the eye to let you know if you deserved your check or not? Yeah. I mean, how wild is that?
Yeah, I love that. You can go on and on with the Luke stories are incredible, but he he operated on a different way, but at the end of the day,
cash.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, just it was something unique, but he played the game hard. Yeah, like he was the GM and he made hard decisions. So I'm not looking for just stroking the players every second. Like, you can do it, and I think it needs to be done the right way.
Can we switch a little to Peter Laviolette, because again, you watch this team play and we can point fingers at the GM as much as we want. But at the end of the day, details fall on a coach. Not being ready to start hockey games fall on a coach. It's not the system. Everybody loves the word system. The word system is kind of BS. It's their structure. But the game of hockey now is so fluid. It's so fluid. It's no longer necessarily always winger, center, winger. It's F1, F2, F3, right? Teams play 5-man offenses. So you look at the structure, you can pick on it. But to me, it's the details. It's like you talked about, you watch their strong side winger. He's getting caught diving in. He's not sealing the dot. His head is not on a swivel to make sure that wherever their F3 is kind of getting lost into the soft areas, the way guys are getting between their coverages, their weak side winger's not low enough. You watch the way they're approaching defensemen. You have too many guys that you watch when they dump the puck. It's the goal. They're not getting it by the goalie. Like, you could go to every detail that wins you a hockey game. Go into board battles. They're on the wrong side of it, cheating, right? Like, that's on the coach. He's not inspiring his players to have good details. Players clearly aren't being held to an accountability that you need. So, what do we do with Peter Laviolette here? Because we already know the history of year 1, year 2, year 3. Now it just seems like, they almost got to do it just to do it. I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I mean, Lavi has been a fantastic coach in his career. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Lavi, but it gets to the point, like what you're saying, like what else do you do? And as cruel as it is sometimes, and it's true, it's much easier to remove a coach than it is 18 players or skaters. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's harder to do that. Doesn't mean it's always the right answer, but you got to start seeing those things. I think, for an example, just when you talk about it's bad habits, it's a lack of recognition. It's just all the details that are lacking. That's the coach's job to get those tied up. And it could be if the same player is making those mistakes, then there needs to be something done about it. If it's you need to get as many staples in your game as you can, so you can become predictable for one another defensively. I don't see any of those things. It's just a complete kind of freelance out there. And yes, it is a fluid game, but your gameplay doesn't need to be fluid in every situation. Like, there needs to be certain things set in place. Like, even some of the discipline. Here's an example. I think it was the St. Louis game. I think the Rangers had like a odd man rush. I think Jones jumped up and Laugh had
one the other way.
Yeah, Laugh had the puck. He comes down below the goal line.
Yep.
Blind backhand pass to the middle.
Play to the middle.
Right in front of the net. So first and foremost, hey, no hope plays, man. We're not the stage. We're not no hope plays. If Johnny's screaming his bloody head off, you can do that because you're communicating and whatever. And then if he wasn't open, that's on Johnny. And you guys got to discuss that and talk through that. But Laugh made a blind backhand play to the middle of the ice. Then he circles the net and he's below the goal line and he puts his hands up and he's yelling at the referee. He's yelling at the referee because he thought that there should have been a penalty on the play. Yeah. The guy standing next to him is the guy who got the chance at the other end, below the goal line. And he's yelling at the referee. Like, those are details. Like, what are we doing? We're not yelling at the referee right now. And don't, I understand the frustration, but you got to start taking some of those things out. And that's just maybe having the right attitude and doing the right thing. But as far as the defensive play, I mean,
spiraling.
It's down low. There's a disconnect between the low forward and the defenseman. There's no layers. Like, you beat a guy, you go to the net, you're home cooked. You're home free. And then you go to the net and you literally have 4 other players staring at the puck that are just tracking in towards the puck, and we're getting guys wide open in front of the net. Like, those are the things, again, it goes back to kind of doing your job. And for me, is even as much as it is players and maybe some of the same players doing the same thing, yes, it's on the players, but it's the coach's job to change those things. And I don't think that's happening.
I have I don't know how I want to phrase this question. I suck at it, but I try not to be Ranger bias. And on this show, we talk about the Rangers a lot, and obviously it's been a big story as of late. But Rupper, as someone who covers the league nationally, you're on NHL Network all the time. Have we made this story bigger than it is? Or is what's happening to the Rangers really what?
What's their record in the last 12 or 13 games?
But I'm saying teams go on losing streaks all the time. But
this is more than a losing streak. They ran their captain out of town. They're in Broadway and Madison Square Garden. What?
When you hear the players talk, I'm telling you, it's just like it's a losing streak, right? But is it being now talked about further because of who is on the losing streak? That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think because they won the President's Trophy last year.
Colby, pretend it's not me asking the question and think about the question.
Yeah, because I think coming into this season, you had these 2 jerseys right here were the 2 teams that I thought would position themselves in a spot to overthrow Florida in the Eastern Conference. And only one of them looks to be that team right now. And so they won the President's Trophy last year. This is their window. We knew about the Igor contract that's been settled, been done. We know about this is a team that still has some very difficult decisions to make. And you thought like it was, everybody said, the players were talking about it, basically the last dance with the team. Yeah. So like the table was set for it to be a monstrous year either way. And so, no, I don't think we're overselling this. I don't think the media is over anything. It maybe a little bit more because it's New York City and it's an original 6 team. But man, this is a team that all of a sudden finds themselves like, who would have thought that this team would be battling to get in the playoffs?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I still don't think that that's a thing. I don't see there any way this team doesn't get in. But I might be dead wrong with that. But yeah, no, it's something that I think it's because of who they are or were and what we think they should be this year.
Not to mention when you threaten your captain with waivers to force him to waive something in his contract, you're going to be a massive story. I mean,
let me say this too, because first off, and I love interacting with fans online, and I sent the video out yesterday, and I have you figure you're gonna have some agree, some disagree.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it's at, maybe 50-50 or 40-60 or whatever it is. And first and foremost, for you to compare the NHL with your job where you work your balls off going to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week is insane. We live in fantasy land. Can we please park that for a second? To compare real life to NHL hockey players, this is fantasy land, dude. This isn't real life. So I'm talking, the things I'm saying is in our little world, and that's what it is. You guys know, you guys played. This is our world we live in. It's not reality.
No.
In our world, everything that I said is reality.
Yeah.
And in the regular hard working American class, that's fantasy land. So like to compare those things, it's crazy to me because you guys are grinding it out in a much more real way than NHL hockey players.
Yeah.
But whatever. Anyways,
different, just different.
And going back to the Trouba stuff too. And this is I get so angry when people say this, that Trouba drug them through the mud. I've heard media people say Trouba blocked them.
That's bullshit.
Trouba made it miserable for them. Hold on. This was negotiated into his contract. He had 16 teams that he could be traded to. Okay. And he gave that list. Half the league that he could be traded to. And he gave that list back on July 1st. Here's the fun thing, because I've talked to agents about this too. This is why you never should have gone down the slippery slope as a league with giving these things out like candy, because you could strategically put your teams on the list. Everybody automatically thinks, on his no trade list was probably Buffalo. It was probably Winnipeg. I mean, maybe not Winnipeg now, but you understand, like the markets that aren't desirable to live in and all those things. But a lot of these players, you could strategically, you don't have to put New Jersey on there because they're not trading you to New Jersey. You basically, any team in the Metro, you don't have to put them on your list, because I really highly doubt the Rangers are going to trade Jacob Trouba to that team. You can look even further. You can go to some other teams who have cap situations, what their decor looks like. You could really make this, instead of a 16-team trade list, a realistic 6-team. Like, it's not hard to do, and these agents get paid a lot of money to figure those things out. Now, he had a no-trade list that he didn't agree to. And where did he end up going? Anaheim. Was Anaheim on the list? Absolutely. So don't tell me Jacob Trouba eventually he got his arm twisted enough and made it miserable. We're going to make your life miserable. We're going to embarrass you publicly until you accept this. And that's what happened.
Issue. And that's my big issue.
Don't give me the Jacob Trouba is just to blame in all this.
He's got zero blame.
He's definitely not.
He could have played better. Played better, right?
And I'm not even saying I have a problem. The right move, it could have been the right move.
Yeah.
He was not playing good.
No.
He's been struggling for quite some time.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying he should be a New York Ranger still.
Agreed.
But there's a way to do business.
It's what I've been saying, and it's what I took, one of the big takeaways I took from your video. And that's reality. Like, I say this all the time, Rupper. when people are calling a player, oh, this guy's greedy because he thinks he's worth $15 million a year. No, you know who's greedy? The owner who voted for a salary cap. Be mad at the owner. There's a triple hard salary cap. If you want players to stay on your team, if you want guys to be there and get rid of the triple hard salary cap. Stop calling the players selfish. Okay. The owners are selfish. Stop calling Jacob Trouba selfish. The GM who gave him trade protection. Be mad. We are so quick to throw the player under the bus in every situation. It always happens. It even happens when there's work stoppages. We always end up blaming the players for all of these things, and it always gets under my skin and pisses me off. And I come on here and I yell and I scream, and I'm like, you're pointing your fingers in the wrong places. Okay? You are pointing your fingers. When a player has something contractually, why is it their fault for wanting to stick to their contract? Why isn't it the team's fault for wanting to break what they put into a contract?
Go look across the league at how many players on teams have full no moves or modified no moves, and go look at who some of those players are. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
So it's been used as a tool for general managers to close a deal on certain
Drive
players.
down AAV.
And it drives down, and that's the big thing too. In pretty much every situation, there's a cost at that. Okay, you want X amount of dollars, but you also want a modified no trade? No, we're not going to pay you the AAV. It's to keep costs down, and they hand these things out like candy, and they want to throw up their hands when it's time to move that player. I mean, we've seen players get moved with it before, and it work out well. Not all of these are bad situations. But it's a conversation. It's a respect level.
Yeah.
And I don't think it happened here.
It's like, oh, Igor, you want $12.5 million? We're not giving you any no trade clause. Oh, you'll take $11.5 million? Okay, we'll give you a full no move clause for your entire contract.
Yeah.
But you know what? That was the team's decision. So when everybody's angry in however many years that falls apart, just remember, they decided they wanted to drive his AAV down $1 million a year, okay, from what he was potentially asking for by giving him complete control over the destiny of his hockey career, which was probably for him worth $1 million a year pay cut.
And here's one for you too. And just to look back at some of these situations, Marc-Andre Fleury, before when he was in Pittsburgh there, and the writing was on the wall, obviously, with Matt Murray winning those back-to-back cups. So they win 16, they win 17. Vegas is coming in season of, was that 17-18 season? Was that their first season, I think? I believe so. Yeah, because they went to the finals in 18 against.
Yeah, they won in 16 and they won in 17.
So Flower, I haven't looked at this for a while, but Flower had, I'm pretty sure, a full no-move contract. Okay, so you're sitting there thinking, like, how do you end up in Vegas? Well, and that's what drove me nuts in a lot of these situations, is that a lot of the media just automatically wrote that Marc-Andre Fleury was going to be left available and not protected on that list. What do you call it? The expansion draft. I didn't like how he was treated in that, because publicly they just kind of made it as Marc-Andre Fleury's the guy because Matt Murray. But you understand, contractually, Marc-Andre Fleury had it in his contract. He could have blocked the Pittsburgh Penguins because he would have been an automatic protected guy on the list because he had a full no move clause. Okay. And what would that have done? You can only protect one goalie. You know what I mean? I don't think Matt Murray at that time would have qualified to be on that list. So I think he was automatically protected, but he could have screwed up things there.
Yeah.
But they made it very obvious. And Marc-Andre Fleury they hurt him enough where he would waive his no move. And I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna hurt a guy enough to get your way with that. And that's how he ends up in Vegas. And these things are negotiated in your contract, and then teams want to throw their hands up and say they don't like it when they are the ones who negotiated it.
Yeah. Rupper, I just got one last one for you, and we appreciate your time this morning. It's been almost 45 minutes. Actually, it has been 45 minutes. But Ranger fans always ask me, and I've run out of answers, so I'm going to ask you, can they get out of this? And if so, how? I got nothing.
I think you, and it could be the same coaching staff. I don't know. I'm not in that room to know how they are and how that is on a daily basis or how they're received. But coming to the rink, and fans will jump all over me for this. Coming to the rink has to be fun, man. And as dumb as that sounds, and we talk to kids all the time, you got to about it. It's about having fun. It's about having fun. It's about doing your job, yes, but you still got to have fun, man. Hockey's got to be fun. And if you're driving to the rink every day and you're because of what the situation is, it's gonna be really hard to get out of it. Yeah. So I don't know where that is. You got to get some levity in there. You got to find a way to sit here and, like, I think back and talk to the guys in that Penguins run. I came the summer of 09 after they won the cup. And you remember that year, Michel Therrien was the coach. This team was in a bad spot. Dan Bilesma came in. Every player I talked to, he didn't change things drastically. He came to the rink and there's nothing to lose now. Like, things are, and that's kind of where the team's at right now. There's nothing to lose now. Like, stuff's been bad, but you got to find a way to make it about us against the world, come together and let's have some fun. Like, let's work out of this, have fun. And that's what I'm saying. Get rid of all the other BS on the side, and then you can start focusing at the task at hand. And I don't think that can happen until that BS is removed and that those situations are parked and put to the wayside. So as dumb as it sounds,
it's not right.
That's your job. That's your job as a coaching staff. You got to make coming to the rink enjoyable again. And I think that's the biggest thing.
No Matt Rempe?
I mean, you need emotion too. You need emotion. So if that's your answer, then that's your answer, or you get it elsewhere.
All right. Well, we appreciate you, Rupper. You're the best. Thank you for hopping on, and we might have to lean on you if this keeps going downhill because the schedule is not getting any easier for this team. So
it's going to be a tough grind. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hey, how about this though? What a great story it would be if they could turn this thing around and go on a run. Right? Like, this is like, it doesn't feel like it can get much lower. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, 100%. But thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Rupper.
All right. Awesome stuff from Rupper. And I know the chat doesn't love when we do only Ranger stuff.
Yeah, but what else are we talking about today?
Yeah. I mean, like, Line A hat trick last night.
Yeah, okay. Cool. And you know what?
Struggling Sabres.
Everybody has a cell phone and can watch the highlights of Line A's goals. Like, his 2 one-timers, the one where he was so faded out and went back the other way.
That was nasty.
I mean, listen, that is so hard to do, and he makes it look so easy. Lane Hudson, another few apples. Like, nobody is even considering him in the Calder race, and they should be. Macklin Celebrini again last night, goal and an assist. There's other things to talk about, but here's the thing. You guys all have cell phones. Okay, you can all watch highlights. We've never been a highlight show since we started. Yes, there are some times. Yeah, good call, Jeremiah Mangiapane. Absolutely walks around TJ Brody. Like, the Blackhawks get a big win. They're playing better under Anders Sorensen. But the reality is, the 2 biggest stories in the NHL right now are in New York. One's in Manhattan. One's in Western New York.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we just get into more, because I have one other topic I want to bring up, do you want to give a quick word to our sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps. Hockey15. Colby, let me ask you a question on the hot seat. Since December 5th, who is the #1 team in the NHL?
I know the answer to this because you're texting me. The Sens are so back. So I assume it's got to be the Ottawa Senators, right? I mean, look at the goaltending numbers. Yeah. Like, go to the last 7 games that Linus Ullmark has played. I think at least 5 of them, he's been above a .950 in at least 5 of them. Last night he gets a shutout. But like, let me just ask. He's never been even in Boston, when he wins the Vezina, he was still like a 60-40 split, wasn't it? So do you have to
ready
for
these numbers? Are you ready for these numbers? I'm going to read the numbers. It's ridiculous. So in his last 6 games, meanwhile, The Sens have won 6 out of their last 7. I was texting with Pinto last night. He was all fired up. He scored a big goal in that game, which actually was the game winner because Ullmark got the shutout. But Linus Ullmark's last 6 starts, 6-0-0, 5 goals given up in those 6 games, a .972 save percentage, and a 0.83 goals against average. That is fucking nuts. And 2 shutouts. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, when you have a goaltender that is playing at that level, it just changes the way that your entire team operates because
even their defensive numbers are good though. Like their high danger chances against. I know you don't love stats, but like those are all trending positive. So the guys in front of him, I don't
mind. Listen, that high danger chances against, which is a real number. It's not. And yes, listen, you may think high danger. I may think not high danger, but like
there are some flaws to the stat too. It doesn't tell you which player has the chance. Like, it's not Crosby having a scoring chance over, Sam Carey.
Right. But my point is high danger scoring chances are real. That's a real number. Telling me the expected chances against is bullshit. It's fake. It's not real. It's a percentage of what might or could have happened. Like, so, but how many high danger chances your team gives up? Like, that is definitely indicative of your defensive zone coverage or the way you defend a rush, or the details that you have in the defensive zone. Like Rupper's talking about sealing the dots, low winger in the slot for coverage, like not giving up opportunities, within the house, right? So that's not a stat that I dislike. Stop throwing a blanket over me because that's not true. There are some good stats in hockey that are extremely useful, but they're hard numbers. They're not, percentages based on, a bunch of computer nerds that never could wear hockey skates in their life. Like, sorry, that's different.
And sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to slander Sam Carrick. He was just the first 4th liner I could think of. And I didn't mean to what?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean to throw a blanket over you. I just, just trying to fire you up a bit.
I mean,
what are you say?
I guess, you want to talk about some other things happening around the NHL. I don't understand why these things like this whole Terry Pagula thing gets made public about, and I get it. We have people who get information, but like it's some of it I would even compare to the Chris Drury situation. Like, he says the other day, Chris Drury's like, we're just going to let the dust settle now for a while and we're not going to make any moves. Well, what if like a great trade falls in their lap today and then they make it and everyone says, Chris Drury's full of shit. Chris Drury lied to us a week ago. The Buffalo Sabres, they come out with this strong statement of like, I trust Kevin Adams. I trust Lindy Ruff. Like, and then they go out and they lay an even bigger egg to another bad team.
Yeah.
And now you either a liar or you put yourself in a corner of not being able to make any moves. So like, I don't understand why people are always so quick to come out with these big sweeping statements, because I think that it either turns you into a liar or it turns you into, or it puts you in a corner.
Did you catch that voicemail by the Sabres fan? That was actually my buddy Dwayne. I don't know if you heard that voicemail that was going viral on Twitter yesterday, and it was actually played on Chicklets. It was fucking hilarious. You didn't hear it? Oh, well, I retweeted it yesterday. If anyone wants to listen, my buddy Dwayne, who was a season ticket holder 5 years ago, called on some radio show and spoke about his feelings on the Sabres and how now we look at it 5 years later and nothing has changed. The voicemail, I can't do it justice. Go listen to it. It's hilarious. He rambles on for 4 minutes, talks about how he just brought his sister to a game and she had no idea what she was watching. And even she was like, this team sucks. It was just hilarious stuff. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's a lot of drama this year, it feels like, but it's not drama around the league. It's drama around a couple different teams, right? It's been a wild season so far, and the drama is going to keep going. It's not going anywhere. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up around the league?
Yeah, I mean, listen, remember last year in the beginning of the year, all anybody could talk about was the Columbus Blue Jackets and Mike Babcock and how ridiculous that was. And then their coach not using their young players. Like, the stories are the stories. We don't make them. We just discuss them. Like, and these are the stories. So, again, like, I'm going to defend you for once and say today the story needed to be the New York Rangers after losing to the Nashville Predators. Today we needed to hit on, why Terry Pegula needed to come out and throw all these votes of confidence behind people that really don't deserve it, honestly, because it just seems empty. It just seems like hot air. It seems like empty, empty words, empty promises. And, with the New York Rangers situation, again, I think there's a lot of blame to go around. Like, I don't think it's all on Drury. I don't think it's
the
all
bottom
on
line. The players
I
aren't
don't
playing
think it's
well.
there's a lot of blame to go around. And when you're playing like this, that's how it goes, right? Everybody has to take their share, some more than others. In any of these situations, look at Nashville. We've talked a lot about what a shit show they've been, and talking about they're going to scratch this guy. And I'm going to listen. We were ripping Barry Trotz 2 weeks ago because we said his whole comment about I'm going to start trading and rebuild. We said that was all bullshit, right? Because you're talking about a team with a bunch of old players with no move clauses. So, like, again, more hot air. That's maybe been one of the biggest differences, is that there's been more public, I feel like, comments from GMs that I feel like has just been total garbage this season. And so that's given us more things to talk about. So look, make sure if you're enjoying this episode, you give us a like on it. If you're not subscribed to the Daily Faceoff YouTube, the lineup. We start at 9 a.m. Noon goes to Frank and Tyler on DFO live. And then 3 p.m. is the sheet, with a number of different guests that pop in and out throughout Jeff Merrick's hour. But, look, get involved, because the season's heating up. Like, we're in the juice here. Like, this is no longer the early season. It's we're coming up on the new year. We're coming up on a roster freeze here in the next couple of days. I think once we get back, we start thinking a little bit about the Four Nations and how that's going to look and how that's going to play out, but also the trade deadline.
World Juniors.
Yeah. World Juniors, and then the trade deadline. Like, it's really not that far out. It's going to move fast. So I'm glad that we have, good stories to talk about right now, Johnny.
Yeah, and we'll plug Leafs Morning Take as well. They have Paul Bissonnette on today. They pre-taped it yesterday, so that's another show you can go to right after this show, which Vic does produce that show as well. If you're a fan of Vic, which we know there are a lot of Vic fans in this chat, and Vic, again, has had a great week so far. He's back from vacation. So shout out to Vic. We haven't given him any love today. But Colby, do you want to move into...
He did have one of the all-time worst bets on our show yesterday.
Oh my God! Yeah,
that Buffalo bet was Vic's bet. So let's move through to Bet365 here, Johnny, and see what you're looking at for this evening.
Well, this is actually another Vic bet. We are running it back with him because his Toronto Maple Leafs are on tonight against the Dallas Stars, which should be a really good game. And we're going with the under. The under is 5.5 at plus 100. Two of the best defensive teams in the NHL as far as goals against goes, both allowing less than 3 goals per game. So we're going to trust the goaltenders in this situation. Dallas has the best goals against in the league right now at 2.50 goals against, and Toronto is 6th with 2.61 goals against. The Leafs also scoring under 3 goals per game. So signs should point that this game should be under. It should be a tightly checked game and should be a good game. Should be a good battle between two of the top teams in the NHL. And I'm excited to watch that. A lot of firepower on both sides. So under 5.5 at plus 100, good value. I don't think they've named the starters officially. Have to imagine it is Jake Ottinger for Dallas, and I would assume it's Joseph Wall with Stolarz out.
Obviously going to be Wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why they would go
You never know. I mean, they just haven't named any official starters, so we're not going to give.
Who's the guy who gets called up in Toronto? Is it Hildeby?
Yeah.
Vic, you would probably know that better than me. But I think that's usually who their
Daily Faceoff has a 50% chance unconfirmed Joseph Wall, so it's 50-50 on who starts.
Carter Hutton got into it yesterday a little bit about how they mismanaged Anthony Stolarz, and this could have been avoidable. I kind of liked what he had to say about it, and I thought it made a lot of sense. We don't really have a lot of time to get into that, so if you want to see that, check out yesterday's episode of Daily Faceoff Live. Other than that, Johnny, I think that's really all we have today. We'll see what tomorrow brings. I know Pat has a game tomorrow, so we probably won't get him tomorrow. I guess this will be an off week from Pat, which is okay. He's obviously made a lot of time for us here the last number of weeks. So, we'll just kind of relook to get to him next week. But, other than that, look, I think it was a good show today. I think we always appreciate Rupper's point of view. Normally we bounce around the Metro a little bit more when we have Rupper, because Devils, Penguins, these are all the teams, Islanders that he sees pretty recent, he works for the he does TV for the Penguins on top of NHL Network. So, but other than that, look, we appreciate the chat today. I know a lot of people were kind of disagreeing and throwing some shade each and every way. I saw a lot coming my way today too, which is obviously totally fine. Always good with that. And as always, look, you guys have plenty of different shows you could be listening to. So we're always appreciative of when you're with us. And I think that's all the time we have today. We appreciate you guys rolling with us, and we'll be back with you 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.